Vincent van Gogh was a Dutch painter, generally considered the greatest after Rembrandt and one of the greatest post-impressionists. His artistic career was extremely short, lasting only 10 years from 1880 to 1890. The film we discussed tonight, Loving Vincent, took 7 years to make. The film, the world's first fully painted feature film, tells the story of the last years of Vincent van Gogh's life. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another fantastic episode of the Fantastic Mr. Podcast. I am here with my hosts, Justin Strange and Zach Briggs.
What up?
What up? What are
And
copying
I
each other
am,
tonight?
We're your hosts tonight.
yeah, and I am your host, Jerome Kramers. Tonight we're discussing a lovely film called Loving Vincent. It's a 2017 film that is known for being the world's first fully painted film. Let's talk about it.
No, I'm good. I'm just kidding.
I assume you guys watched it. I hope you did.
I did.
Oh, we were supposed to watch it?
Yeah, that was tonight, man. That was
I'm just kidding.
tonight.
I'm just kidding. I watched it. I watched it today actually because I like to do them
Same.
either on Sunday or on Monday, like before I go to work, because so it stays fresh in my brain.
I usually don't have time to watch a full movie through at one go. So I'll usually start a movie at night and then finish it the following day at my break at lunch. So I watched it
God.
last night and then finished it today.
I'm not a big fan of starting movies and then stopping. Like I can do that with TV shows, like an episode of something, but like with a movie, I either unless I'm like super like if I start a movie and I'm like crazy tired, I might stop it. But like usually I get through it. I have to.
I'm with you, but it's just the fact if I don't do that, I'll never watch movies,
Okay. That's
which
fair.
is how long they are and the schedule I have. I'll either be up till like 1 a.m., which is not acceptable, or I have to split that time up and watch some after my daughter goes to bed and then some usually before I get home and have to deal with her again.
Totally.
So it's just
Life.
what I have to do. So, but anyway, give me a quick thought. What did you guys think of it?
I thought it was visually captivating through and through. It kind of reminded me of the movie A Scanner Darkly, just because the fact that there's animation, it's just the colors. I know that's rotoscoped, obviously, but behind the scenes, you could see that there's real actors. So I was kind of looking at snippets of the behind the scenes bits. I was amazed at how they translated that acting into this full-fledged painted. I wouldn't say it's a masterpiece, but it was certainly appetizing, I'd say.
Appetizing.
And yes, I
It's a
like
delicious film.
I like how it's from the perspective of Mr. Is that Armand
Armin
Roland? Yeah,
Roland, I believe.
yeah. And he's a part of a family who are they're painted individuals by Van Gogh. If you know, dive into some of the pieces he painted during his rather short career as a painter, and I just like all the way that he goes interviewing individuals to learn more about how Van Gogh died, that the divide, trying to figure out whether it was suicide or killed by someone, and that visual transition from one of the people that he's interviewing, and it's the colors on screen. It goes to black and white. I like the way that they transitioned. Overall, I thought the movie was fantastic. I'd watch it again to perhaps catch things I did in the past. There's a number of great actors I've seen and shows movies. What's the Helen McCrory? If I'm saying that correctly, I think she was in Peaky Blinders, if I'm not mistaken. I saw her, and then Saoirse Ronan. She plays one of the blonde gals that that Armin interviews toward the end,
Mhm.
and
There's
so
also,
many others.
yeah, like Chris O'Dowd
Mhm.
is the
IT
postman
crowd,
Joseph
baby.
Flynn.
I love him, that freaking show.
A surprising face that I saw was Jerome Flynn, who plays Bronn on Game of Thrones. He played Dr. Gachet. Probably butchered that name. I
I
apologize.
think that's how
But
they pronounce it in the movie. Boucher.
um,
I think it's Boucher.
yeah, it was Gachet. But what can I do now? I'm a lowly
Nothing.
American, you know.
Yeah,
But I love the film because despite the fact that it's just a beautiful film and that it is kind of an homage to this incredible artist, I just love the effort that was put into it. Like, who goes about creating a film? Because it's essentially a stop motion animated film, but they've painted every single frame. That's how they made the movie. Is they painted over 65,000 frames for this film. It's 94 minutes long, and one of the artists, Stephanie Mang, um, has a quote that said a single minute of the film is made up of 720 paintings. So at 94 minutes long, that's over 65,000 paintings
Jake,
made for
how
the film.
many artists were involved? Remember in the beginning of the film, it says it's like 100 or something. I forgot.
Yeah, like 100 at
Mm,
least.
it's
I can probably
amazing.
get the exact stats up in a second, but I thought it was in the hundreds.
Yeah, at least 100 for sure. That's amazing.
And the process behind that was really, really cool too, which we can go into more detail. But I want to get Justin's opinion. Justin, what did
Hmm.
you think of the film? What are your initial thoughts?
I just hated it. I hated it so. I'm just kidding. Okay. Well, of course
The
it was.
music was wonderful, right?
Oh, okay. It's my turn now, Zach. You had your turn. um, I think all around this was a great film. I really enjoyed the visuals, of course, especially like Zach, you were saying the transitions. That was one thing I really noticed was going from color to black and white. And I thought maybe it was like sketchings, but
Like charcoal? I thought that
yeah,
at first as well.
yeah, and or just even pencil. Like I thought maybe it was just pencil sketching, but then I was like, no, because I saw some like video of them painting that, and so, but it looked like I love the contrast between the present versus the past, where it's like,
The memories.
well, yeah, exactly, the memories, the present looked really great, but it was a little more I don't want to say messy, just not as fine as how the flashbacks basically were painted. Um so I really enjoyed that contrast. And then yeah, the music, I really want to put that on my Spotify playlist because it was really good. Like, and it was like music that just, it wasn't trying to reinvent the wheel as far as counterpoint goes, and um trying to add music on top of something you wouldn't expect and blah 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 blah. It's like it just was like, this is the kind of music you would listen to if you're either painting or looking at a painting. And
Yeah.
I and
It's
and
what Van
like,
Gogh would listen to.
yeah, exactly. And I was like, this is like, it was just like, I mean, we've used this term before, and I've used it to describe the French Dispatch, was like poetry, not poetry, like watching a painting. Right.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing the whole time. I mean, literally, that's what we
In
were
this
doing.
case, literally.
Yeah, exactly. So literally, that's what we were doing, was watching a painting. But
A
it was
moving
just like,
painting.
it was just like, yeah, I mean, just like watching a flip book if it were a bunch of paintings, right?
Yeah. And I
Um,
love that about this film because it really felt like it got down to the like essence of artists in general, not just film, but like artists in general. Like I feel like every single creative person, when they're like in like sixth or seventh grade, probably makes like a random flip book
oh yeah,
of like two guys fighting or like
or a ball
something.
bouncing. I made my
Exactly.
I made my high
Just
school students make a flip book, and a lot of them did a ball bouncing because it was very easy to do.
precisely,
Um,
but it's just something that artists do. I think it's ingrained in the
mm.
creative process and the people who love the
um,
creative process.
One thing I would like to add before you get going is, like, yes, the movie was beautiful, it sounded great, but I enjoyed the story. At first, I was like, because I like when I was when the movie first came on, I was like trying to get settled down and all this stuff, so I was kind of like missing the point. But once I got into it, like I really enjoyed this guy who's not really a detective. he's not a detective. But then I saw that he joined the police force at the end of the movie. That he joined the police force and worked the police force. That he played a detective basically because he's like, first of all, who the hell am I supposed to give this note to? Because the person I'm supposed to give it to is dead. And but then he's like, he finds out some things, and he's like, oh well, he killed himself. How did he? Why did he kill himself? And then he might have gotten shot. And it's just like the story was really good. Plus, I really enjoy the British accent, like in general. So like I watch a lot of the Great British Baking Show, because like they're when they speak so proper, and their voices are so like, I don't know how to explain
Lovely.
this. Yeah, I mean, yeah, lovely. That's a great a great term for it. Even the guys, even the men is like,
Yeah.
I want to live there just for their accent. So it's like I just enjoy listening. And like even the girl um who was like the innkeeper
Mhm.
that he gets a lot of its information from. I really enjoyed listening to her speak. So like I liked the story a lot, but I enjoy the British accent.
Yeah, they
So
had a
to
nice
me,
mix of northern and southern English accents.
yeah, like that
I'd
doctor,
say
that one doctor that said it, he got shot and stuff. He's like,
it was
you know
kind
what
of
I mean?
it was a little. I mean, it was an immersive breaking for me. The fact that they're English accents, various versions for a character that wasn't even English, but I think it worked for this movie. But the only thing that kind of put me off is like when when he walks in, when one of the, was it Armand or Roland, when he walks into, or no, I think it's during one of the memory scenes when Van Gogh walks into like an inn perhaps, and the foreigner. It's like they sound.
Oh yeah.
Van Gogh sounds English. They sound English.
Mhm.
They could have done perhaps a better job to distinguish like between uh, what makes him a foreigner.
Yeah, I thought about that
I don't know.
too because
That was the only
he.
thing very nitpicky, but
Yeah, I thought the same thing when he called him a foreigner, and I was like, "What? Oh, I guess because we live in the United States, so foreigner to us is like anybody not from the United States." But I don't know
they
where
sound
this.
different.
Yeah, they must sound different. They know accents over there, so it's like they
Yeah,
know, and somebody's not from there.
but the guy who played Van Gogh, I thought was fantastic as well. A very tormented individual,
Yeah.
and I didn't know much about Vincent Van Gogh growing up, other than he cut off his ear, and he was a wonderful painter. My grandfather, my dad's side, has the Starry Night, like a copy of that. I think a lot of people in the world have seen
Some
Van
sort of,
Gogh.
yeah.
Yeah, and that very distinctive style that he possessed. And reading a little bit more about Van Gogh and his brother, who had that gallery he was trying to make worthy of establishing as a business, and how they kind of supported each other throughout their ups and downs, is pretty interesting.
It sounded like to me that Theo is supporting him from
Yeah,
from just the movie perspective. Is Theo? He even said, like, the doctor even said, like, how big he could have a house like this if it wasn't for.
I thought it was an incredible film for the fact, like you mentioned, Justin. It's just like you're watching a painting on film because we literally are. But the whole reason I was interested in it was the fact that it was a hand painted film.
Right.
I thought, who would go through the effort of painting a movie frame by frame? What would go through that?
Somebody would.
Yeah, and as you know, I love the creative process for anything that's made, and so that's what attracted me when I heard about this film. Um, it wasn't necessarily that I was attracted to Vincent Van Gogh or his artwork, which I do think they're beautiful, but it was the fact that someone would make a labor. There's obviously is a labor of love for this artist.
Well, it's like any animation, like I think animation in itself is like an art, just not just, literally painting, but the painting thing is crazy because it
Mhm.
took forever to do and a bunch of people to do it. But like, even just regular traditional animation is like, I like it. I enjoy watching. And then things like, and I've talked about this before, like 70s animation, it just has this certain look to it, and like to me that attracts me. And so like
Mhm.
just to see somebody who, or not somebody, people who created this fully painted animation is like just in itself. I'm like, even if the story's not good, I'm gonna watch this. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
That's
and like the story, like I really enjoyed the story, but it's not like it was like something that was mind blowing. You know,
no,
it was just they
It was
needed
a,
something,
it
and
was a
so
it was
familiar
it was
formula. We've
yeah,
a
seen.
exactly.
lovely, intimate film, like
Right.
it didn't set out to be like a
Well, besides
showstopper.
well,
It just
besides the
wanted,
paintings,
beside the paintings, but the
the
storyline
story.
itself,
Well, it's
you
like
know,
I could compare it to Citizen Kane. You know, we've talked about this. It's like Citizen Kane stories not that great. Like it's okay, but
It's harder to follow.
yeah, the everything that goes into making Citizen Kane is what makes it interesting. It's
mhm.
not like I don't if I were like, hey, let's watch Citizen Kane. It's such a good movie. It's like no, it's because of the way the technological innovations that Orson Welles implemented into that movie is what makes it a great movie. And it's the same with this. It's like the story is great, but it's not like a
Mhm.
mind blowing story. There's no crazy twist or anything. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of a twist,
It's quite a simple
but
film.
it's very simple film where it's just like a guy trying to find answers.
Yeah.
But let's do
And
it
and
over paintings.
yeah, and I did like, I mean, technically, I think you could probably define it as a like neo-noir type film because this guy really is
Yeah, I guess you're
like
right.
investigating like what happened to this person. Like he's the role of the investigator.
To his
Or
father's
the
friend.
And the whole
detective.
story, yeah, and the whole story is told through the different perspectives of individuals surrounding Vincent, which by the way, I should probably give like a little summary of the film.
Sure.
The summary of the film is this. Um Armand Rollin, the son of one of Vincent's paintings, tasks him with delivering a letter to his brother, to Vincent's brother, after Vincent's death. Um, and so that is what Armand sets out to do, only to find that Vincent's brother has also passed away, and it becomes a journey of figuring out who to deliver this letter to. And as he goes on this journey to deliver the letter, he becomes more involved in the final years of Vincent's life and leading up to Vincent's death. And so he kind of becomes this impromptu investigator to determine what really happened to Vincent. And this is not a it's not accurate. This is a fiction, but it blends um historical um historical conjecture that we know about with this fictional story and wraps it all around these figures, which all the figures or all the characters featured in this movie are all people that Vincent painted. So the postmaster, the doctor, like Dr. Gachet, the housekeeper, like Louis Chevalier, the boatman, all these are all characters in the movie that they fictionalized based off of paintings that Vincent actually painted of real
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. I like
And so all throughout the film, you're getting these glimpses of actual paintings that Vincent made. All throughout the film, they actually reference over 120 of Vincent's actual paintings. So the scenes that they take place at are taken from paintings. The people that they're from are taken from paintings. Um, and they've used all of his work and his life to create this encompassing story for us. But that's the summary of the film. It's really kind of a neo noir.
I was wondering
yeah.
about the scenes where they're based on paintings or not. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there's some things that they came up with themselves but in the style, still trying to keep the style, unless
Yeah, but like
every single scene.
all the set dressings, like whenever there's like a scene, they're all created to get to a reference point that Vincent actually painted. So like the girl at the piano, or like Vincent or not Vincent, the Dr. Gachet, like all the scenes and the
How about
place.
how about the field where he shot himself? Is that based off a painting too?
Mhm.
Which one? Is it Starry Night? 'Cause it looks
No,
like there's
not
a field in
Starry.
that one. I want to know which field where he tried to kill himself. I think that's pretty interesting.
You're pretty interesting.
I think he has several. He has many, many paintings of the wheat field.
It's weird how he just painted where he was gonna shoot himself.
Again,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is actually where he shot himself. That might be fictionalization for the story.
Maybe they should have prefaced the movie with that.
They use the paintings, at least to my eye, they use the paintings as kind of references to create sets, to create the settings for where the story takes place. This is not accurate. It is a fiction, but it's kind of
People should be given that disclaimer when they watch Blonde, because people thought it was a biography, but it's based off a fictional book.
Somehow bring you back to Blonde, don't you, Zach?
how do we get to this, guys? Come on.
Because people watching this probably think that the story being portrayed is accurate, but there's no
is fair.
disclaimer.
Well, yeah, I don't.
Like the stories are being told through all the people that this detective's interviewing. I mean, what are they probably not going to do much research after?
Well, I mean, even when the movie's over, you see the paintings, the real paint. Well, not the real paintings, but digitized
paintings
versions of the real
inspiring
paint.
the-
Yeah, the characters in the movie. So it's like that he painted these people. He might not have painted everything that's in the movie, but he painted the people, and so they're versions of what he painted. I mean, the versions he painted were a little more not as
refined.
yes, thank you, refined. I almost said fine, but I mean either one would have worked. But refined is a better word. They're not as refined, even the painting of himself. But I mean, if you stuck those into the movie, I don't know how aesthetically pleasing it would have been, because they were um, like their faces were like, it was almost like looking in a funhouse mirror on some of them, where their faces are like distorted and stuff.
Yeah, that's post-impressionism.
But I do, I mean, they're great paintings still, but I don't know if they would have worked in this movie.
Yeah, post-impressionism is kind of, it was like, my understanding of post-impressionism, it was kind of like a reaction to man, like it was a reaction to like the naturalistic depiction that was in painting at the time. And so it was this kind of way of like exaggeration, I think. Just kind of like taking life and then making more of it. Which of course Van Gogh's actually considered, and they say this in the film, he's considered the father of expressionism. And if you ever look up like the definition of expressionism, that is an art form that like emphasizes the distortion of reality. So all of his work is heavily taking what he saw and then exaggerating it and redefining it. So that's why all of his portraits and still lives have that almost abstract quality to them.
So did this movie make you want to learn more about Van Gogh?
Well, I mean, I know
So
a
as the
little bit about
painting,
him through
like the art aspect, because you just talked about like the style and the impressionism.
Yeah, well, the only reason I know that is because I've taken art history courses in college. I have a minor in studio art, and so we took 2 semesters uh of art history, starting way back from like the caveman drawings to modern times. And so I remember a little of that still, which is the only way that I'm able to contribute anything of worth in that aspect to this conversation.
Yeah, because I didn't.
That's also kind of like why I enjoyed the movie as well. Is because like, oh, I recognize. So like when the movie was playing, I was recognizing, oh, that's a painting that he's done. I recognize that person. That's inspired by this painting. And so it was neat for me to go through it of almost like a Where's Waldo, of like, okay, find the painting, find Vincent's work,
So this
Just
movie didn't win Best Animated Feature. It was beat by some.
Yeah, I was
it?
gonna
What was
ask
it?
if it won any awards.
it was nominated.
I mean, it better have been. I'm surprised it didn't win. I would have straight up voted for this. Like,
It was-
why not?
I don't know. Probably. What was it? The movie that won, was it Paw
I have no
Patrol?
idea. It was probably Puss in Boots.
Probably.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
That's
Oh.
deserving. It has more of appeal. I mean, I understand.
I think.
Yeah, but still, I think
How many people are going
I
to be
do
spending the money
vaguely-
to watch Loving Vincent?
I do vaguely remember this being.
I
on
remember
the ballot.
it being nominated. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Now
thought it
that
looked
you mention
weird,
it.
but it was like oddly mesmerizing when I watched, like when they're talking about, oh, Loving Vincent. And he's like, it's interesting.
Yeah, you know what I thought this movie was when you mentioned it, Jake, was the movie Love, Simon.
Mm.
And that's about like I think it's about like a gay kid that's afraid to come out or something like that. I was like, why does he want us to watch this movie? I mean, I'm not against watching it, but I was like, that's weird. But then I realized that it's not that at all. So yeah, that
See, I
movie's
was wrong
best,
about
but-
I was wrong about Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse. It was Coco.
Oh my god, you've
Coco
got to be
won.
freaking kidding me! Freaking Disney. Sorry.
They have the stranglehold on whether
Hey,
Yeah.
it wins or not.
it beat the Boss Baby. The Boss Baby could have won.
I mean, it
I'd rather
didn't.
Coco win than the Boss Baby.
Yeah, I guess, but I would have rather like now having watched this movie, it's like this should have won tons of awards. Actually, let me
Yeah.
see if it won any awards.
The acting was great.
Yeah, the acting was really good. Like, I mean, I just think British people are just good actors, though. Like a lot, the lot of them, if you will. That's a British saying. The lot of them. We'll take the lot. That's from Harry Potter.
Yeah, and in the scene where they're with the woman's saying, "Oh,
Candy.
yeah, taking off the trolley, dear."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he's like, I'm all set. It's like this
Yeah.
crappy sandwich. He's like, I'll take the lot.
Yes,
Let me
rich
see.
Harry
It
Potter.
did win a few awards. It won Best Animated Feature in the European Film Awards
Good for them.
and the
That makes
Shanghai
sense.
International Film Festival.
Us Americans, we love Coco.
Freaking
Yeah.
Coco. I've never seen Coco. And I don't ever care to see Coco.
Dang.
It won a few. It looks like it won most of its awards overseas.
Yeah, that makes
Had a
sense.
better appreciation overseas for some reason. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that interesting in the sense that like Americans, I don't know, like
Stereotyping incoming.
it's not. It's just like we things that win over here aren't normally things that should probably win. But then I get surprised sometimes, like when Parasite won best movie. I was like, oh, and then Brendan Fraser won best actor. So sometimes you get surprised, but a lot of times you can almost predict what what's going to win at the Oscars.
I feel like the American Oscars is very politicized. So it's
Oh yeah, totally.
whatever movie has the most what would you say, like most apparent political message for the time, like whatever the bandwagon is, that's usually whatever wins.
Whatever people are like, this should win because of this.
Yeah, which
Anyway,
is unfortunate, but
that's a whole other issue. We can talk about it next year's Oscars if we want.
So I did some research on the way that they made this film. And pretty much what they did is first they got all the actors and filmed them in front of a green screen. So they got their plates, which, Justin, it's I found it kind of interesting. You said you love the 70s animations film because a lot of those 70s films are rotoscoped, which is, animators drawing for our audience, animators drawing over film
Live action.
plates.
Yeah.
And this movie was done the same way, except instead of drawing, it was
They painted.
oil paintings.
Mhm.
And so what they would do is they would get the
That's
plate,
crazy. Ugh.
then they would have a team, which I looked it up, Zach. It was 125 artists They would go and paint the initial frame of the film, and then whenever they had the next frame, they would erase that portion that needed to be changed, or they would paint on the next frame. So you'd have a base plate, and then they would adjust for the next scene, ending with a final plate of that scene.
Woo.
Which, interestingly enough, if you guys like this movie enough, or listeners, if you like this movie enough, you can go and actually buy paintings from the film. They have
I would love to do that. Oh my
well,
God.
wait until I tell you the prices.
Oh, of course.
Because they range anywhere from like 450 euro to over 6,000.
Unless you can find a replica. But-
Yes,
Or you can find a poster, I guess. I wouldn't mind having just the movie poster of this movie,
the
but
posters. Yeah,
I would like
Just
a
go on Google
painting.
Images and print it out. There you go.
Put it on a glossy piece of paper.
Yes.
yeah. But I found it really interesting that after they've made the artwork, they are, making those frames available for people who really want to join. Because my understanding is the production company behind this has started another painted film, and they're trying to raise money for that, and use some of the frames that for that next film. So they've just taken kind of like the most appealing frames from this movie and are selling them to raise money for the next movie.
Painted
So
film.
be on the lookout for the next movie that comes out from these guys.
I wonder would it be based around another artist?
I don't
Maybe.
know.
Picasso, something to do with him.
Or what's the other ones? It's more Salvador Dali.
Oh yeah, that'd be excellent. I saw a bunch
That would
of
be
Salvador Dali
trippy.
paintings yesterday. He painted a lot of Holocaust themed ones.
Yeah. Be kind of cool to see another one, but this one is kind of one of a kind, so I kind of like that aspect about it too. Is like there's nothing else like it,
Yeah. I like Lord of the Rings from the 70s. Or was it the 80s?
The
God.
70s. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the 70s. I actually watched The Hobbit. It was okay. I mean, it's
Is
like
that rotoscoped?
yeah, it was. I mean, I think a lot of the 70s stuff was mostly rotoscope. Now I'm sure Disney stuff and there's traditional animation in there, but rotoscope is just, and we've talked about rotoscope before. It just seems like a lot easier than having to draw from scratch. But once you draw that initial image, all you got to do now is just draw the movements, and that can be tedious, but at least you have the majority of the image still.
I'm looking for the production company behind this. See if I can find what they're next.
But
I agree. You mentioned earlier, Justin, that it was kind of hard to follow in the beginning, and you also liked the black and white portions better. And I would actually have to agree with you on that. I found it a little difficult to follow in the beginning. Part of that might have been because I couldn't find the closed captions, and I just don't watch movies with closed captions anymore. But especially because with the painted feature of this, it was really difficult to really follow.
It
Like,
was hard at
what they
first
were saying.
because you're like so engrossed in the artwork and stuff that you like don't really care about the story as much until you're finally like, it's almost like adjusting your eyes to the dark. You go in the dark, and then once your eyes are adjusted, you're good to go. But like at first I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. And then I was like, okay, I got to pay attention to the story. Like, yeah, I know this looks great, but I need to pay. I would have loved to have seen this movie in theaters. Like, I wish, in 2017, I mean, I was watching movies and stuff, but I wasn't going to theaters as much. And I don't know. I wish I would have loved to have seen this in theaters. That's why you gotta see movies in theaters, because you never know what it's going to turn out to be. Sorry.
Yeah, and I just think it's unfortunate because I don't feel like this movie got a lot of it didn't get a lot of noise surrounding it when it came out. Like it
Right.
didn't have a massive marketing campaign. It didn't have a lot of people talking about it. And so I feel like a lot of people just kind of glossed over it. The only reason I paid attention to it is because I was so interested in the fact that they actually painted this film. But For other
Yeah.
like for the general audiences, they might not care about that.
Exactly. Like there's a lot of stuff that, we'll watch as film lovers that I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go see this movie. Like when
You're like, what?
yeah, like when Marcel the Show with Shoes On came out, and I was like, oh my god, this movie looks so good. And I was like, hey, I want to see this movie. And they're like, maybe that's weird. It's talking about my family. Oh, it looks weird. And then I'll mention like, anime, like Studio Ghibli stuff, and they're like, that's anime. I'm like, so what? Like, it still tells relatable stories.
I
I
think
mean,
a
it
lot
might
of people
be,
probably have a similar reaction to seeing clips or trailers for Loving Vincent. Like it's
that,
too indie looking. It looks weird.
I
yeah,
think
I
probably.
don't care about
I
an
think the
artist.
simplicity of the story probably turned a lot of people off because, there's just not a huge amount of people who love like just paintings in general. I feel like
well,
most people today are modern in today's society.
they just
Uh,
don't care about like the aesthetics of a movie like we would,
The work
like
that goes into a movie.
I mean, seriously, like people are just, often like a lot of the students I teach now, like there's since they're not film students, they're just arts, like they're students basically. You tell them they'll never know about a movie and usually until I say something or make them watch it, and they'll never know it would have existed. Like
mhm.
right now we're watching a movie called Unsane, which we've talked about this movie as
Ah,
well, and we're watching it because it was shot on an iPhone, and so, but like they would have never known that until I said this movie was shot on an iPhone, and I'm gonna make you watch it. So like I just think a lot of people, especially in Arkansas, like Arkansas is so um I don't know. It's just the film movement isn't. I mean, I think it's growing a little bit, especially up in the northern part of Arkansas, but like it's just not big enough around here for people to be like going to see Wes Anderson movies. Usually, like now, Asteroid City. When I saw that movie in theaters, that freaking theater was practically full, and I was like, "What the hell?" But usually, I'll go see a movie, and a lot of times it's by myself, because like Midsummer, when I saw that movie, it was me and maybe three other people. When I saw Beau is Afraid, it was maybe me and two other people in the whole theater. And then when I saw I'm trying to think of a big movie, like if I go see Transformers or something like that, it's like a lot of people. When I saw Cocaine Bear, there was that theater was packed. It was mostly young people, younger than me, but it was packed. I had to sit next to somebody. Like that's how packed it was. I typically don't like to sit next to people at the movie theater. People don't know. So yeah, I just think that the audience for those kind of movies here, especially here in Arkansas, is just like very small. If it doesn't have anything to do with cars or robots or superheroes or football, it's like it doesn't matter.
how can we get general audiences to like really appreciate the artistic movies that are coming out?
I have no idea. Like
Marketing got to be the level, the style of
yeah,
marketing.
yeah, you could like let's look at like movies like Inglorious Bastards that like promoted Brad Pitt heavily in that movie. Like Brad Pitt in. It's Brad Pitt in. Brad Pitt's barely in that freaking movie. You go see it, and he's barely in it. But hey, they got people to go see. Well, it's also a
It's an,
Quentin Tarantino movie,
it's an
so
odd movie to
that
begin
helped.
with.
That helped a little bit. But promoting these big stars that, like when Little Miss Sunshine came out, Steve Carell's in that movie, and when Steve Carell shot that movie, he wasn't a big name, but then he became a big name because of The Office and because of 40 Year Old Virgin. And then they're like, oh, now we can use Steve Carell to promote this movie. And
Mhm.
he is in the whole movie, like the majority of the movie, and he's very good in it. And like, but like they're like, oh, now that Steve Carell is big, we can use that to promote this movie. So like, the only way that you might be able to sell one of those kind of movies is first of all get a big star in it, and then if they only have 5 minutes of screen time, boom, there's your hook. We got
Yeah,
Tom Cruise in this movie. Come see it.
yeah. You
It's
could,
not like
yeah.
come look at the beautiful artwork that created all the manpower that went into it. They don't care.
Who's the biggest star in Loving Vincent? Would you say? Again, for British audiences, it might be different, but for American,
I think
What's the biggest one? Would you
I
say?
mean, the only one I immediately recognized was David O'Dowd.
Well, Chris O'Dowd, and the only reason I recognize him was because of the IT crowd. But like me and my friends watched that show. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
nobody really that I know has ever heard of it, but me and my friends have. But yes, Chris O'Dowd is in that movie, and he's been in a lot of stuff. Like, but I know him from the IT crowd, and then um, the only other one I don't know, like that. What's her face?
Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah, Saoirse
Yeah,
Ronan, because
yeah.
she's in something. Isn't she in a big show? Is she in
I know her from the
is,
movie Brooklyn, but she's been in that. It was in a kind of a. I don't know if it was like a detective slash scary movie.
well, she wasn't in a TV show. She wasn't in like Game of Thrones or anything, was she?
No,
Oh, okay.
that I know of. Not that I know of.
Yeah, okay. I've heard her name before, and so that's the only other person I can
But for
think
the
of.
rotoscope movie Scanner Darkly, you had Keanu Reeves, you had
What
Robert
Robert
Downey
Downey
Jr.
Jr.
So
Yeah,
you had a lot of uh, big
yeah,
name stars. On top of that, I mean, despite that it fell short of
well, and
making
I
back what the budget was. I mean, it has
yeah,
general positive reviews, and I feel like that the style of the movie having to do with drugs,
mm,
a kind of a satire about drugs and hallucinations that probably brought people. I mean, drugs, and what's violence? That's what brings
I
people to
guess.
the seats.
Yeah, I like with the Scanner Darkly, and I've never seen it. I do own it, but I've never seen it. But
It's very
like,
good.
I think that because of the fact that you got rotoscoped actors, even if they're big names, it's like I'm gonna guess that the rotoscoping probably turned some people off too because they're like
Mm-hmm.
they thought it was probably an animated movie, which technically it is, but like you know they might see it and go that looks stupid because it's animated. It's
They
like
can't tell exactly. It looks
yeah they
like it
don't
could be live action, but it's not.
yeah
I don't
and
want to
it's
give it a
just
chance.
it's just not what they're used to. They want to see it in live action, whereas us who will give movies like that a chance, we'll go see it. It's like when the Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker came out, and the if you've ever seen that game, it
I played it.
looks yeah, it looks like it's geared for children, but it's a great game. But it got a lot of flack when it first came out because of the cartoony graphics. That's what led Nintendo to make Twilight Princess, and so like just little things like that will be like, oh, this is for kids. I don't want to watch this, and it's still like, no, dude, you don't know what this movie's about. Just because
Mm-hmm.
it's animated, that was just something the director chose, but it doesn't mean that the movie's bad.
So while you guys been talking, I've been doing some research on the next film that this production company has been working on.
Mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
and they've actually already released it. It's a foreign film called in English it's called The Peasants. Um, it's originally in Polish. I'm probably going to butcher this. Klopy. It's an adult animated historical drama that is based off a Nobel Prize winning novel of the same name. Basically, it's about uh, young a young uh, Polish peasant woman who creates havoc by marrying an older rich man.
Oh yeah. Oh my
The
god, this looks
Peasants,
beautiful.
2023. Original name Chlopi. That's Chlopi. And I'm just looking at the frames on IMDb,
Yeah, me
and
too.
they look
Look magnificent.
incredible.
Yeah. Wonder where I can watch this movie. Four
I'm
wins and
watching.
three
I'm reading an
nominations.
interview that the excuse me that the one
Director,
of the
producers.
producers,
Okay.
Loving Vincent, was talking about, and during this interview, which was released before the film, they were talking about how Loving Vincent was very static, and set, but this film will be much more ambitious.
So it hasn't released yet. Oh yeah, no, it
It
hasn't
was
released yet.
released. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it was released and actually won several awards.
But it hasn't released in the U.S. yet.
It hasn't released in the US yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What is it? English speaking, or is it?
Man, if they do, it's probably dubbed because it
Mm,
looks like the original name is in Polish and they've
mhm.
just given an English Name all the actors I'm looking at are foreign. So no, I don't imagine
The
this would be
subtitles,
in
perhaps.
English. Yeah, it'd be
Yeah.
subtitles or dubbing, one of the two.
All right. I'm excited
But
for this.
man,
Another movie to
I
find.
just found the next film I'm watching.
Yeah. What if it's gonna? It probably won't come out till next year in the U.S.
Probably a limited release date, if anything.
Yeah. Oh, in Poland it was released in October.
Oh yeah, we're not going to see it for ages.
Yeah, unless we buy it, like the
Like
Blu-ray.
yeah, you probably need a like what I have, a modified Blu-ray player that could play different region discs.
I'm such a nerd.
The Peasants movie, but it looks good. So when it comes out, I'll see it.
Why don't
It
you just
does look good. What do
go
you
to
guys,
Poland?
especially now that they've created a second film in this style, what do you guys think about this becoming a potential genre, a potential, entry into the animated world?
I think it would work, and especially if they
Oh yeah.
do other genres that could appeal to more people.
Well, it's like the whole screen life thing that we talked about, where movies happen on screens. It's like it's becoming a thing now. So if they keep doing it, I mean, I think it looks great. I don't know why they wouldn't keep going, but I'm sure they will.
It's going to take some time, some years for
Yeah.
people to really get used to it. I think the Spider Verse animation, animated movies, I think that it took people some time to get used
Not
to
me,
that
man.
style.
I was like, I want to see this. And even my friend Josh, who yeah, he loves movies, but sometimes I show him things that he's never heard of or seen. And like right when we saw the trailer for um Into the Spider-Verse, he was like, I want to see that in theaters. It's like, okay, I'm down. And
As
we
you could
did.
tell, TMNT, the latest animated movie, was inspired by
Yeah,
that
that kind of
style.
information. Yeah,
Mhm.
animation.
I think so. Maybe I'm wrong, but it
I
seemed like
mean,
there was some inspiration.
yeah, I think it is.
Because we had never seen, at least I'd never seen that style of animation in a movie before,
Yeah,
with the
totally.
frame rate or whatever the frame rate was.
Yeah, there's a lot of different that movie used all sorts of stuff. But I'm very much for this expansion of, artistic quality. Like I feel like Hollywood has been like narrowing in into a very, I'm gonna say a very safe, like a safe atmosphere of producing films. Like if you go on Netflix, all the Netflix produced films have the same look. You go on HBO, all of them have the same look in terms of like the lighting ratios and the camera placement and the style of the shots. They've they've got themselves into a very safe place, very uh uh like general audience friendly place that they've done research and calculated on, figured like, oh, the most amount of people like this style of film. And the fact that there are artists out there who are pushing back on that and pushing the envelope and going in new directions, such as Into the Spider Verse and the painterly quality of animation coming out, and then this movie as well. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I hope it expands to other things, like other ways of animating things. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
people experiment with different types of cameras. It's like, why can't we experiment with? Which I mean, we do, but it's kind of hard to find different types of animation to experiment with, rather than types of cameras, because we have so many ways we can film things. It's like, so yeah, I agree. I hope it expands and all that stuff.
I hope it does too. I just like I fear that, because with especially like this Loving Vincent, they were imitating an artist's particular style, and so finding the people with the talent to do that. I'm reading here on Wikipedia that they uh parsed through a selection of 5,000 applicants
Wow.
to get a total of
Awesome.
125 painters. So
Jeez.
so the fact that they had to go through that many people to find individuals talented enough and capable to make that film, just one film, and if they start producing more of these, I feel like there's going to be a bottleneck. Either that, or maybe it will open up opportunities for artists to get back into oil painting and the what we'd call analog material. Do you guys
Yeah.
think that this would create a potential boon for painters or people interested in the physical medium?
Are you talking about just as artists or as people trying to make movies and stuff?
I was considering just artists.
Oh, I think that, I mean, like watching it, I thought, man, I think it'd be kind of cool to be like a painter, but I couldn't do it. But yeah, I mean, it'd be, I was inspired a little bit, but like, I'm not going to go out and do anything about that specifically, but I was like, it'd be kind of neat to be a painter and just to go out and like sit and just paint. Cause like, I feel like it's somewhat easier to be an artist if you have that talent than it is to be a writer sometimes, you know? So
Mm.
even for me to go out and try to sit down and write, I'm just sitting there looking at my computer and I get distracted so easily. Whereas if I had the talent, I could take a canvas or something outside and just start, going to town on it, in a manner of speaking. So
Yeah, I think it would spark interest for a lot of people to, whether they're artists or not, to either become painters or reinvigorate their craft or just dive deeper into who Vincent van Gogh was. So I'm sure a lot more Google searches were
yeah.
the result of the movie.
By the way, for those that are interested, there is a documentary about this, and it's called "Loving Vincent: The Impossible Dream," where it just talks about creating the world's first fully painted feature film, and it's only an hour long, and it's on Canopy, I believe.
That's
If you want to
Canopy
watch
with a
it,
K.
yep, Canopy with a K, spelled just like Canopy but with a K.
Can it be available worldwide? Is it
I
usable?
have no idea. No idea. I would assume so because there's
I know.
there's foreign films on here and stuff, so I would assume so.
I will say this would be pretty cool for our audience that Canopy is accessed through a lot of libraries. So if you have a library card, you might have access to this program through your library.
Also, if you're in college, you can ask your school if they have access to Canopy because that's how I first learned about it was UCA. If you were a student at UCA, you could be access to it. But then I had access to it for a while, even after graduating. But then it kind of earlier this year, I couldn't use it anymore. So then I learned that you could use a library card, and I was like, oh my god! And then I got excited. And then at first I couldn't find my library, and then I all of a sudden could find my library one day. So it's a very reliable source. It has a bunch of great movies on it, a bunch of great movies that you probably have heard of, and most movies that you probably haven't heard of.
Yeah, the tagline it says stream classic cinema, indie films, and top documentaries. So it's
Yeah,
definitely going for that like artsy
yeah,
creator aspect, not the general mass
not
produced.
Netflix and Hulu and all that stuff. Which
Yeah,
don't get me wrong, those streaming services are great,
there's a
but
place for 'em.
it's nice to have streaming services that don't cater to the general audience. Which like Canopy is one of them, the Criterion Channel is one of them. So those
Well, if you do,
two,
I mean, a lot of people don't go beyond whatever's just right in front of their face when they go on Netflix, on Hulu. I mean, they have movies and a lot of
yeah,
independent films. You just got to dig for them.
right.
But Canopy makes it a little bit easier. It's
Yeah,
certain
kind of
types
more
of movies.
specializes in it,
Yeah,
and I mean,
those are
like,
great.
and Canopy has movies like everywhere, all what is it?
Everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah, like it has movies like that, but I don't consider that necessarily a blockbuster, but it kind of is. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's one of those rare indie films that went mainstream.
yeah, that everybody loved, which it was a great movie. It was a great movie. But then they have a bunch of A24 stuff on here and stuff, so I don't know if you're looking for something a little different. Canopy and Criterion Channel, it's $10.99 a month. I mean, I haven't found a free way to access Criterion Channel yet. Besides going, hey mom, I want this for Christmas.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah, and I can probably get her to pay for me a year at least. So that's
There you
probably what I'll do, or for my
Pretty cool
birthday.
Christmas present.
Yeah, or for my birthday's coming up, so I just asked for that. So yeah. great resource. And one thing that me and my colleague talked about was she's been trying to get her students to get library cards. She's like, I think it's really important for students to get library cards because like we have a library, but if we can, just them being students at Philander Smith, they can get library cards to CALS, which is the Central Arkansas Library System. And it's a huge library system with several branches. And so I was like, dude, what you need to do is just make an assignment for them to watch a movie exclusively on Canopy. Then they have to go get a library card or they
Yeah.
get a zero. And so, but I don't think she ever did that. But we did bring someone out to the campus to, distribute library cards. And I was like, if you guys go get a library card, I'll give you extra credit. So,
Good for you.
so a
Libraries,
lot of
we
them,
need libraries.
yeah,
Libraries should
a
be
lot of them did it. And I told them like, dude, libraries are a great resource. It's not just going for looking for books. Like, I don't have a library card to CALS, but I can book their rooms for like when I was shooting a lot of short films and I need to audition people. I used it for auditions and stuff. So it's like,
Yeah.
and then they also check out movies and they have services and stuff. Like libraries are a great resource.
Just incredible
period.
community resources all
Yeah,
the way around.
exactly. And like college students, they're too cool for that sometimes. But hey, man, for extra credit, they'll get the library card. They might not ever use it, but dang it, they'll get it.
Good for you. Well, guys, that's all I have for this. I thought this was a lovely conversation on a lovely film. Do you guys have any final thoughts on the matter?
I don't know. I wouldn't mind watching it again with maybe some friends. If I can find, we do a movie night every week, and there's certain categories and stuff we have to follow because of this book I have, and maybe I'll see if I can find a category that this fits under that will involve them, watching it with me because I think it is a great film, lovely film. Like it's not necessarily, it is mind blowing in the fact that the aesthetics, the way that that's created, but everything else about it is just, a little, not necessarily plain, but the story is just a story and all that stuff. But it's just all together lovely film. Like lovely is the best, I think
Yeah,
the best word for it because it's like, I don't know, it's pleasing. Like it has a certain calmness to it to me.
it does.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Zach?
I think it's lovely and somewhat cerebral. Just for a lot of people, it might go over their heads, but I enjoyed the captivating art style. And again, I know some of these actors, not personally, obviously, but from previous roles. So it was nice to see some familiar faces.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing after seeing the movie makes you want to watch the documentary or just read more into the behind the scenes and how the movie was brought to the big screen.
Yeah, I mentioned this before we started recording, but I had considered watching the documentary like almost immediately, but then I was like, you know what? I want to wait until after we talk about it to watch the documentary. So
Let it digest. Let it
yeah,
digest.
yeah,
I used to be the guy that after done watching a DVD or a Blu-ray, I would go right to the special features and watch the hour's worth, or sometimes these days they're kind of cheap. I feel like and they'll go like 20 minutes worth of
yeah,
behind the scenes interviews. But I think I think the behind the scenes stuff is my number one go to.
yeah. I'll probably watch it soon though, because it's only 55 minutes long. It's not very long. One other thing,
Perfect.
I thought about quickly, and then we'll be done. Is like I was watching the movie, and I thought, there's a documentary and there's a movie about this. Like maybe I can make my students watch it. But then I thought to myself, also, I was like, they won't appreciate it. Like that's a bad thing about showing some
You're
movies.
optimistic.
I mean, it's very true though. Like they'll watch it and be like, it was cool. Like we reread the play Driving Miss Daisy, and I'm like, okay, what y'all think? And I would ask a certain specific student, and they'd be like, it was cool. I'm like, you got to give me more than it was cool. Like this is a discussion. You have to give me more than it was cool. Or if they don't like it, like tell me why you don't like it. Like it's so like watching this and being like, oh man, this could be something I could show my students because we're going to start talking about documentaries and then we're going to talk about narrative films. So it's like, two birds, not really two
Yeah.
birds. It's like two birds and two stones. But I was like, oh, I could show them both of these. But then I thought, even if they watch, the documentary and the movie, I don't think they're going to appreciate it like I would want them to as a film professor teaching film students, not just randos.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I think it was a lovely film, as we all agree. I think it was an incredible endeavor of the art form, and I really appreciate the amount of love that was put into this film. You can tell every
Oh, yeah.
frame of this film just had
Totally.
love poured into it. And so while the story may be a little simplistic in comparison to what we're used to in the Hollywood tentpole films, I think it was very nice and well fitting for the medium it was in. And this is definitely a movie that I would go out and buy a
Oh, yeah.
DVD or a Blu-ray
Totally.
of and keep it on my shelf as art, because it's just a lovely piece. That will do it for tonight's episode. Thank you so much for being with us and listening to us. If you want to find us on the social webs, we are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, and we are everywhere you can find a podcast to listen to. So please reach out to us and respond. We love hearing comments and suggestions from our listeners. And guys, have a fantastic day.
Bye.